Well guys, every great journey starts with a single step, which is a very pretentious way of me saying, yes, I'm redoing my whole vinyl collection all over again, from A all the way to Z in parts. Now, let me just give you a brief summary of each part, how it's going down. Every video is going to contain at least 15 records shown, and I'm going to try my best to give you a brief description without, making these videos too long, so I'm gonna kind of go by each record fairly quickly, but hopefully I give enough description to where it sounds appealing to you to check out. Like always, links will be provided to everything I talk about in the description below. And also as well too, my plan with this is on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, I'll always do at least one more part with this series, and every time I include a new part, like when I go to part 2, 3, 4, etc., I'll put it in a playlist on my channel. That way it makes it a little easier for you guys to find each part. And, my plan is, do these on the weekends, and on the weekdays, maybe do another stupid one of my videos that, I'll just randomly think of and do. But yeah, really other than that, the only other thing to talk about here is what we'll be playing in the background, and that would be Dimir with their one EP they ever did, Through Spears of Sacrilege. Really, really good war metal, one of the very few I give a shit about, from Lebanon out of all places. And I feel like the fact that this is put out through Lebanon just gives it like genuine hatred for an emotion, whereas other war metal bands kind of give off like a flexing type of attitude of, oh, look how fast I can play. Dimir just gave off like genuine hatred, and I feel like their environment being in like war-torn Lebanon just gave it like something realistic, which just makes it way better than I think like a mass majority of the shit excuse of war metal that people appraise. But yeah, that'll also be in the link provided too in the description of background music. With all that said, now we can finally start the first step with my vinyl collection. Starting it off all the way in the front is the debut album by Aaskereia. I say debut album because I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce this album title, as it's in German and I don't want to butcher that language. But yes, Aaskereia was a German black metal band, and I say was mainly because I don't think they're really active anymore, and from what I've searched up, they're on like this indefinite hiatus, only that was like back in like 2011 they did anything, so I'm just going to assume at this point, almost a decade later, that they've disbanded, which is a huge bummer because these guys have a really unique sound. And what makes them so good is that they're one of the very few black metal bands I can think of that utilize clean vocals and make it work. Because most bands that do that within the style of black metal either make it sound awkward, pretentious, or just overall not good. And I think what works for them so well is that their writing style is very harmonizing for black metal. And when you have the clean vocals come in by the vocalist, that he can do the shrieks and the cleans, which is insane. They're just so soaring and uplifting and have like an opera-like power to them that just flows together so perfectly with the instrumentation. And damn, man, it sucks that they're not around anymore because the music they left for us is absolutely awesome. And this is the debut right here that I'm lucky I got this because it is really hard to come by, and I snagged it up the moment I had an opportunity to. Sadly, it's a one and only time pressing, and this pressing is pretty dated because the jacket's really flimsy and kind of worn out, but can't complain. I got the music, and that's what truly matters. But yeah, for the layout, it's pretty bare bones, as I would expect from like a late 90s pressing of a vinyl for black metal. Got the artwork right here, backside of the track listings. Just comes on a standard black vinyl, also with a lyric sheet, double-sided with some artwork. And I believe this is the artwork they use for the CD variant of this album. From there, we go to the sophomore album by Aaskereia. Once again, I say sophomore album because I have no clue how to pronounce these album titles by Aaskereia. But this album right here is a massive reason why I even give a damn about the band. So I remember discovering this album being just absolutely floored, and I would say out of the two full lengths they've done, this is the better of the two, as the musicianship's a bit more tightened, and he really perfected his vocals on this album. Just basically they strengthened everything they were good at just more, and you just get more bang for your buck, I feel like, with this album right here. Hopefully they do a reissue, because once again, it's a one and only time pressing, and they're getting really hard to come by, and they're pretty damn expensive, which is a damn shame. But all we can do is really hope that this band reforms, because they have a really unique kick-ass sound that just is one of the few examples of making black metal and clean vocals, you know, the mixture of it, work really well. But this one is a gatefold with it, so you have the artwork, gatefold with it, you have the lyrics, the picture right there, backside. As you just saw, I dropped this. It's just basically a little mini poster with like some lyrics on that as well, which personally for me, I'm not really crazy for lyrics on a poster, but it's all in German, so it really doesn't matter to me. This one's a double LP, but it comes on this black with a little bit of white splatter right there. And on the D side, it's etched, but I don't know if you'll see it. The light's not really showing it, but it's really lightly etched of the band logo on side D. From black metal, we go to something completely different, and that would be Abba with their legendary album, Arrival. Oh my god. Dancing Queen, Dancing Queen, Dancing Queen. If you cannot jam out to that song, I'm saying this as politely as I can, you are a miserable fuck. That's all I can say, alright? Don't try to be this tough nuts Tommy boy right here saying that, you know, you only specifically listen to metal and you're tough as nails. Shut the fuck up, alright? Everyone on this planet should be able to jam out to Dancing Queen. That's all I have to say. And with all the extreme music I got in my collection, I need more happy music, and it's just something I need, I guess, for my sanity when I'm in the mood for something different other than, you know, just blast beats and crazy guitar solos and screaming and shrieking all the time. But yeah, this right here, I believe is a first press, because I mean this thing is beaten to shit. I mean, it looks like it came out of a library or something, because there's just all splits on the top, and it's got some water damage, and for some reason right here, they have like the thing that they usually put on like bathroom stalls or something for blind people down here with these studs. So I don't know, this just seems like something that came out of like a old mom and pop shop, because I got this for like, I think $3 online, and I ain't complaining. As for the layout, I mean, you know, it's a 1975 vinyl pressing, so it doesn't come with much. Just got the artwork, backside, a printed inner sleeve with lyrics, and side A and B. I mean, again, this thing's falling apart too, because every side of this sleeve is like cut, so this thing's just really beaten and outdated, but the record sounds great. But yeah, overall, some much needed disco pop, whatever you want to call this, in my collection for when I'm in a shitty mood. I can put this on and get my spirits up with it. So after that, we get right back into black metal and a legendary black metal band and album, that being Abigor, Nachthimen. Once again, a huge thank you to one of my Instagram followers, Zach, for sending me this, which he told me he had his fun with this album and noticed that I really wanted it and sent it to me just from there, which, dude, again, I cannot thank you enough, because this is a really, really hard record to come by, and I'm really lucky and internally grateful for this. But yeah, Abigor's Nachthimen, arguably you can say this is one of the greatest black metal albums ever, and it's not even a bold statement. That's almost like, there's like some truth to that to some degree, because the musicianship and writing by Abigor has always been masterful. And when they started out in the early years, like the mid-90s, early 90s, they were on a motherfucking tear of just creating just insanely well-written, fast, heavy, aggressive, but creative black metal that is yet to be topped by a lot of other bands out there, by its contemporaries, that just can't capture the spirit and atmosphere that Abigor mastered, decades ago. But yeah, sadly, this again, just like the Aaskereia albums, just got this one-time pressing, and they've never gone back to doing anything. Just Abigor's just been so consistent on making new albums, they've really never bothered to do represses with any of their old records for vinyl. But other than that, got the artwork right here, insanely glossy cover. Backside with the track listings, gatefold, single LP on gold vinyl, limited to 500 copies. With that, we go to even more Abigor material in my collection. This is the 4-way split between Abigor, Nightbringer, Thy Darkened Shade, and Mortus. If memory serves me right, I got this at one of the vendors one of the times I went to the Maryland Death Fest. And it was either 2016 or 2017 I got this. And I think it's 2017, which was the last time I went to the Maryland Death Fest, because that was the year that Nightbringer was going to play. But sadly, last minute, they had to drop the tour because one of the band members couldn't make it. And they were replaced last minute by Angel Corpse, which is a hell of a replacement. Really fortunate enough to even see Angel Corpse live. And I guess to make up for my disappointment, I bought this specifically for Nightbringer. But honestly, I've kept it because of the Abigor material, which, yeah, really late to the party, finally getting into Abigor around 2017, but better late than never. But, yeah, really the only two memorable sides on here are Abigor and Nightbringer, which really isn't that surprising, because that seems like the two standout bands within this 4-way split. Thy Darkened Shade side they're a decent black metal band. They're kind of like a Deathspell Omega ripoff to an extent, but really I feel like if you're into Patushka to some degree, you might find a little bit of appreciation with them. And Mortus is the really forgettable side. But yeah, really solid split just solely for Abigor and Nightbringer alone. As for the layout, we've got the artwork right here. Once again, spot gloss to shit. Backside with the 4 bands that contribute to this split. Comes on a gatefold with lyrics for each band. And just comes on a standard black vinyl. And the other material I have by Abigor is their latest album, which I always have a hell of a time trying to pronounce the actual album title, but I'll just say it's Chronicles of Perdition. Surprisingly, from what I've seen here on YouTube, the people that have reviewed this album have given it a lot of negative feedback, and I think it's because they put all the other material by Abigor to such a high degree that you would think now, like 20 plus years in their career, they're still going to put out, like, you know, S tier, A tier type of stuff. And overall, I would say it's just a solid record. They're not doing anything out of the ordinary, just other than really straightforward black metal here, and Solenius's vocal performance is really something standard for black metal, just really, you know, thick, wretched vocals that it's nothing really that is something you could give higher praise for, but I don't see how you can bash it for it other than it's just, you know, a really standard but solid album, and that's kind of it. Thankfully, this is one of the few Abigor albums you can still get fairly easily out there on many different distros. So again, artwork, backside, track listings, band photo. Comes with a paper sheet with lyrics, and they try to keep it old school, like a flyer or pamphlet with merchandise on it, and like always just comes on a standard plain black vinyl. Alright, next up a smidge of a change up here. Now for some death metal, that would be Abyssal with his debut album, Denouement. I say his debut album because I believe Abyssal is a one-man project based out of the United Kingdom, and when he does, you know, live performances, obviously he hires, you know, guest musicians to fill in for everything. But yeah, Abyssal is one of the few kind of like bands that blend, you know, death metal, black metal to some degree, and doom metal that makes it really creating and dismal and very dense. And I would say the debut album, Denouement, has the most usage of doom metal, I would say. It's a very dismal, dark, punishing album that really gave Abyssal a lot of steam rolling through, I would say, within the whole, you know, underground scene that is definitely worth checking out. But this wasn't the album that really got me into him until we get later on in this video, Anti-catathesis in a little bit. But yeah, solid stuff that's definitely worth checking out. So again, artwork, like all the other records so far, it's spot glossed to shit. Backside track listings with more artwork put out through Hell Thrasher. Gatefold with lyrics, and this vinyl pressing comes on black and white world. From there, we go to the sophomore album by Abyssal, titled, it's gonna be fun, Novit Enim Dominus Qui Sud Anus. Yeah, I just said anus for the last part. But yeah, search it up yourself, the sophomore album by Abyssal, and try pronouncing that. This right here, I would say, is my least favorite of the Abyssal albums I got, because this is where I feel like he gets a little bit confused as to what exactly he wants Abyssal to be. And this is where he starts adding in some artsy stuff, experimental moments that kind of throws off the really punishing black doom death material he throws at you. So it's really something that I really can't remember the last time I played this other than when I bought it. So yeah, it kind of feels weird looking at this album. But yeah, put out through Iron Bonehead. It's pretty easy to get. You have this weird, ominous looking artwork. Backside with just more weird artwork. Gatefold, and is just on double LP plain black vinyl. Then there is the third album, the album that really got me into Abyssal, Anti-catathesis. And man, he hit it so well, so well, blending, you know, again, death metal, doom metal, black metal, and this is where he finally finds a way to be experimental that's refreshing but not pretentious and doesn't throw you off guard. Because I believe it's the track, which one is it? I Am the Alpha and Omega. That keyboard outro is absolutely incredible, and man, it's one of the best albums of 2015 in my humble opinion. That I think it's still somewhat accessible to get. Either Iron Bonehead or Hell's Headbangers will have copies, and I urge you to check this out because this is easily his best material. After this, he did have a follow-up album. I forget the name of it, but I wasn't that crazy about it because it's just like now he's starting to become more of like a blackened Gorguts band that just didn't win me over. But really, for me, his magnum opus, no matter what he does, will be Anti-catathesis. And again, I can't stress it enough. This is definitely an album worth checking out. So keeping the routine going, the artwork right here, backside, gatefold, comes with a lyric sheet, band logo, which I really think the band logo is pretty cool looking. Double LP, but this is the special edition on blue with black splatter. And I gotta say, guys, and you're gonna hear a lot from me, I am a sucker for bands when they do, you know, special editions. They have the vinyl pressing match up with the album artwork. I mean, you know, obviously I'll take any pressing I can get, but if you can do that with your artwork, can't help it, I'm a sucker for that shit. Back with black metal, we go to Acathexus with their self-titled debut album. Acathexus is an atmospheric black metal band, and not one of those pretty, you know, folky atmospheric black metal bands. The ones that really get like trance-inducing and ritualistic, and really the first thing or first vibe I get out of this album just from its opening moments is it really reminds me a lot of Uvia. And if you guys know Uvia, that is a humongous compliment, because there's just something so striking about its guitar riffs that you'll just get immersed in the atmosphere. It's very thick and dense, but something that just feels, you know, again, trance-inducing, and the guy did a very well job with this album right here. It's put out through Fallen Empire, which is so bittersweet to see that logo because, you know, it was one of the best labels from the States, but now that label closed like back in 19 or 18, and it sucks that we don't get awesome releases like this anymore in the States. But yeah, one of the better bands, I would say, from that label that's definitely worth checking out. As for the packaging, you just got this sheet, again, with the artwork, lyrics on the backside. This is a single LP on this white marble color, got a little bit of black going on in there, limited to, I believe, either 300 or 500 copies. Up next, another black metal band, but something much harsher and way more brutal, that being the two-way split between Aquelin and Betjel. This right here is just obnoxious, dense, hellish war metal, I guess you could call it even. bestial war metal. That's like kind of like the really definitive term that this band wants to use. And holy fucking hell, this thing will just blow out your eardrums basically. So if that doesn't sound appealing to you, if you don't like war metal, if you don't like it just harsh and abrasive, stay the fuck away from this. But if that's for you, this can definitely interest you, especially if you're fans, again, you know, of like Revenge, Tetragrammaticide, you know, Knockablitz, you know, shit like that. You could definitely find some interest with this. This was put out through Nihilistic Noise Propaganda, and that label has definitely been on a tear as of lately, putting out release after release consistently. So Godspeed to them for, you know, being a distro and label from the States of my country and putting out music like this. Really rare to come by, because usually it's like some obscure country that you've never heard of putting shit out like this, and really cool to see that we got somewhat of a scene kind of popping up right now. But yeah, other than that, there's really no other description other than just abrasive as extreme music can get. As for the layout, you have this artwork right here, basically just a collage of some really morbid looking imagery. Backside with track listings along with the band logos for each respective band. Insert sheet, you have the Betjel side and the Aquelin side, along with being just on standard black vinyl. Coming towards the end with this, next up is Aqui with his debut album, Hideous Dreams. Aqui was a South Korean black metal band that also had elements of doom metal thrown in there, and it's just really slow, you know, dense black doom. And really the only standout thing I can say about this is at times there is kind of like this, you know, kind of like Eastern type of aesthetic going on with the instrumentation, overall vibe that just sounds very authentic to some degree, with the whole, like, I guess, Asian aesthetic with the instrumentation and atmosphere. And with the vocalist, his kind of like hisses and shrieks makes it something very unsettling, I would say, that gives off a bit of atmosphere that's just very dark and morbid. But yeah, really other than that, I can't say much else about it because I haven't spun this in years. But if you're into Black Doom, this is kind of like an, you know, unappreciative band within the subgenre that really no one ever talks about, which is understandable because, again, I'm pretty sure this band disbanded years ago, and you know, the guy behind it has moved on to other things with his life and completely abandoned just music making as a whole. So as you can clearly see, this was put out through Go to Warx, which I think this is one of the few Go to Warx releases that are kinda easy to come by, that's not too expensive. But again, I haven't looked in years, so what do I know? For all I know, it's probably going for like $100 because, you know, people are just really capitalizing on the hype with Go to Warx, which I kind of roll my eyes at because I just think, to some degree, am I responsible for this back like 4 to 3 years ago when I wouldn't shut the fuck up about this label? Like, you know, maybe I'm not like, you know, trying to give myself all the heat or like, you know, jerk off an ego of mine. It's just like sometimes when I see that, I just think, man, what if I just never talked about the label 4 years ago? Like, would it still be like this, you know, ominous type of label that barely gets any attention? We'll never know. But yeah, pretty solid stuff, I would say. So again, you have the layout and artwork right here. Backside, again, with an obi strip. I'm not going to take it off because it's always a pain in the ass to put back on. Insert sheet, got some Korean lettering going on here. I have no clue what that says. Band picture, and this vinyl pressing comes on a semi-translucent blood red vinyl. From there we go to more Aqui and of course another Go to Warx release. This is a compilation, I believe, called the Eastern Ghost Story Volume 1. He did a Volume 2, I think, earlier this year that I just never got around to getting, which wasn't really that interested with. And really I only bought this because of Aqui. And other than that, it's just like a little bit of a collection of underground, metal bands, ranging from black metal to some doom metal in here as well, all from, the most eastern part of Asia. So got a bit of some Japanese bands, South Korean bands, and even a Chinese band, stuff of the sort in this. And really, I can't say much about it because, again, just like the previous Aqui album, I haven't spun this in years, I would say. And really, as shameful as this is to admit, really only bought it because, 3 to 4 years ago, I was like, ooh, it's God of War X. I need to spend my money, obviously. I cringe all the time thinking of those years, but yeah. Other than that, sticking with the routine, we have the album artwork, backside, insert sheet, got all the bands right here. Really can't even tell you what some of these are because they're really illegible to read. All I know is that is Aqui, and the other side, and this comes on standard plain black vinyl. Water break. Alright, let's get back into this now. Last two records are by the same band, so if you don't dig this band, you might as well just close out of the video now because we're going to be talking about Evangelist with their debut album pronounced, not even going to try to pronounce it. Evangelist was, because I really don't consider them the same band anymore after the particular member that was really the mastermind, Val, left out of some really crazy controversy with the band, which showcases that Val was the mastermind behind this because the latest material by Aevangelist is pure utter shit. But yes, anyway, Aevangelist was kind of like this avant-garde black death doom metal band that's, mostly compared to Portal. And yeah, to some degree, I can see the similarities between Evangelist and Portal, as it's very dismal and dense and very, weird sounding, death metal, blending black metal and doom metal together. But I would say Evangelist is more of like a psychedelic trip, where Portal is more of like a spiraling, out of control, Lovecraftian nightmare. So there's a bit of a difference, I would say. Just Evangelist has more of like a psychedelic approach with how nightmarish they can get. And I feel like this is a great place to start if you want to get into Evangelist, because I would say this is their most experimental thing they've ever done within the project. And man, when I'm in the mood for Evangelist, I tend to go to this album more than anything else within their catalog. Plus, I mean, come on. A black death band with a saxophone makes it just all the weirder and just crazy sounding that I feel like works, again, so well with their psychedelic approach that just makes it all the more trippy and nightmarish. As for the layout, you have this really weird but really cool artwork. Backside with track listings put out through Blood Harvest. Solid label, by the way, if you want to get into death metal. Comes on a gatefold and is also double LP on just standard black vinyl. Last one for this video is once again Evangelist with their sophomore album, Omen X Simulcara, that if you want to get into their most experimental, go to the debut like I just showed. But if you want to get into their most accessible, because it's the most death metal fueled, the sophomore album right here is where to go to. And I feel like because of it being so death metal, fueled, it's the faster and most aggressive album, which makes it arguably the most fun, I would say, to listen to. But don't mistake in that they won't throw any curveballs your way, because it's still experimental. It's still got like a bit of like some psychedelic weirdness to it to keep you on your toes, to give off again some experimentation and make it still sound unique. But Val's vocals on here are just so guttural and low, and again, it's just so interesting how they blend all these subgenres together to still make it sound cohesive without the transitions kind of throwing you off pace that much. Just overall really solid material once again by Evangelist, that if you want their most accessible, this sophomore album right here is the one to go to. Once again, for the layout, you have artwork, Backside with the track listings. This time they were signed to Deborah Morty. Gatefold, really dig that artwork. And it's just on standard double LP plain black vinyl. Alrighty, that'll be it, guys, for part 1 of my vinyl collection. Like I said earlier, I'll try my best to do another part every weekend to the best of my ability. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. A reminder, everything I talked about, the links will be in the description below to everything that was shown. And yeah, other than that, make sure you guys drink plenty of water to stay hydrated. And most importantly of all, make sure you judge people by actually getting to know them and not through a YouTube comment section.